viewers, these are the first visuals we are getting of Russia's President Vladimir Putin meeting what appears to be his most favored ally, that is the Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko. These are visuals coming in from Moscow, from the Kremlin, of talks between what many claim are allies in this invasion of Ukraine. Putin and Lukashenko are two leaders, viewers, who have ruled their countries for decades. Lukashenko has ruled Belarus for even longer than Putin has held helm in Russia. He has been the president of Lukashenko since 1994. He is one of the, in fact, he is the oldest ruling leader in any of the European countries at the moment. And these are the first visuals of the talks that the two are holding. We have Pathikrit Pine joining us. Pathikrit, these visuals of the two presidents of the two countries, how do you read them? And from what you've read about the war, or what you've seen and what you know, how do you feel about Belarus's role in this entire conflict?
Well, Belarus is one of the former Soviet, states which got independence in the 1990s, and Alexander Lukashenko has been running sort of a unilateral dictatorial, leadership in Belarus, and he knows that the West doesn't like him much, and one of the only perhaps strong reason for which Belarus has this person has been in power is because of the strong backing of Russia. There is certain level of convergence that you always find between the thinking of Putin and Lukashenko, because number one, while Putin actually believes that the disintegration of Soviet Union was perhaps one of the worst things that have happened in the recent history of mankind. Similarly, Lukashenko also has a lot of affinity for the former Soviet Union, USSR, because many of the institutions in Belarus still today have the same names of organizations which were there then part of USSR. So that is one very interesting aspect. Secondly, today, if you look at the war, from day one, it has always been stated that, from the northern side, the attacks in Ukraine, which started early this month or previous month rather, happened from three areas: from the northern side, from the eastern side, and from the southern side, perhaps from the Black Sea Fleet of Russia. From the northern side, the invasion happened from Belarus. There were in the Russian armed forces who were stationed there. There were military exercises that Russia did along with Belarus before this, entire operation happened. And over the last few, days, it has also been revealed that Belarus is doing away with its, nuclear pledges. And there are possibilities, there are allegations, there are apprehensions that Russia may eventually put up nuclear weapons in Belarus. That's one. And probably one of the strongest ally of Russia today is Belarus. Both are facing the similar sanctions because of the Ukraine war. And so it actually brings these two leaders together. For Belarus, it's far more imperative to have a strong relation and good relation with Russia, because frankly speaking, without Russia's help, without Putin's help, it will be very difficult for Belarus to actually tide over the economic sanctions and his role as a dictatorial person in Belarus. So overall, if you see, yes, this is a war going on. It's not something surprising that these two leaders are meeting, especially against the backdrop of the conflict where these two protagonists are on one side. It's the most interesting thing out of it is that it has been put up to the public. Perhaps the Russians are trying to show that this is not a unilateral action by Russia. This is a special mission operation that they actually try to call it, or something similar to that, and that Belarus is also an ally of Russia in the whole thing. So, you would see more such meetings, perhaps more integration between the two countries as the sanctions become tighter and the war actually reaches the penultimate stage.
Right, Pathikrit Pine, breaking down the details of the talks that are ongoing between Russia's President Vladimir Putin and Belarus's President Alexander Lukashenko. Like he pointed out, the historical ties between the two countries and also the current speculated military strategic ties as well. There is a lot of speculation about Belarus, like Pathikrit pointed out, especially with given that there are sanctions that have been imposed against it by a number of countries. From the first day of the invasion, and Pathikrit remains with us, from the first day of the invasion, Ukraine has accused Belarus of supporting, not only supporting Russia, but also being part of the invading forces. Pathikrit, how do you read the sanctions that the West has imposed against Belarus? Shouldn't this be one of those things that everyone knows as a certainty? Either it's yes or no. Is Belarus a part of this war?
Well, Belarus is certainly part of this war. And I think, they have almost stated it without saying it in as many words, because for the Belarusian regime, as I had stated, it's very difficult to be in power without strong backing of Kremlin. Secondly, as the sanctions have already been put by the West, it becomes far more imperative, as I stated, because the Belarusian economy is strongly integrated with the Russian economy. And given the fact that Russia has around $630 to $650 billion of reserves, and perhaps a large reciprocity, they're a repository of a large number of resources, both natural resources and of course their technological prowess. It is near impossible for Belarus to survive on its own, both economically and otherwise, without the strong backing of Kremlin. So fact remains that these two countries have very little option, especially for Belarus, other than to have strong relations, strong tie with Russia. And of course, they are part of the war, because it would have been very difficult otherwise for Russia to actually open a front from northern side of Ukraine without coming through Belarus. The only thing what the Belarusians are trying to state, at least the government is trying to state, is that their armed forces are not directly taking part in the military operations, which it cannot be verified, because there are strong possibilities that the Belarusians also are part of this operation. Their armed forces are also part of it. And frankly speaking, compared to the size of the country, Belarus has a very, very strong and a well-trained, well-entrenched military force. So it would be, and they have to show now that they are actively participating and helping Russia in this operation, which the Kremlin puts as special mission operation. So they're definitely part of it, and that's the reason the sanctions have been put on Belarus also. While the pressure is on Belarus, they know what happened in 2014, the kind of protest that happened. It is alleged that those protests were orchestrated from the West in Ukraine for regime change, the Viktor Yanukovych government, which was pro-Russia.
Right.
So Viktor Yanukovych also is in Belarus right now. Lukashenko knows that unless, till the time he remains strongly with Kremlin, he would remain in power. Otherwise, it will not take much time for the West to have similar kind of...
Pathikrit Pine, breaking down the details there. We've also heard that Putin has told Lukashenko that there are certain positive developments in the negotiation process with Ukraine. I thank Pathikrit for joining us and sharing all that valuable insight with us on the ties between Belarus and Russia and the meeting between their presidents right now.